Who is Captain Krakoa? What's a better team name? The Uncanny Avengers or the Avenging X-Men? Why are the Fenris twins so creepy and weird? Will we even be able to answer these questions? Find out today on The Newest Mutants. I'm going to take a look at the cover. I actually have a variant cover. This is an Alex Ross piece. And as you can see, it is actually a part of a larger piece of artwork right here. And of course, here is the non-variant cover right here, right there. All right. And of course, speaking of artists, why don't we talk about the contributors to this book? First, we have Jerry Duggan, our writer, Javier Garrón, our artist. We have Maury Hollowell, our color artist, VC's Travis Lanham, letterer, Tom Mueller, and Jay Bowen on design. And as always, CB Cebulski is our editor-in-chief. Now, on to the story. Our story begins prior to the events of the Hellfire Gala with a Mr. Sinister clone, known as Dr. Stasis, and MODOK discussing their plans for the future of man and mutant kind alike. And they approach a medical stasis pod of some sort, talking about how the person inside hasn't really adjusted well, whatever that means. They begin to talk to whomever is in this pod, telling them how they want to wipe mutants off the planet and they need a few good men. They want to know if this person will help, and then suddenly, a singular fist busts out of the pod. They say, let's get this man a uniform. But who is this man? And what is this uniform? We cut now to the Daily Bugle reporter Ben Urich. Urich is musing on the events of the gala and the massacre at Krakoa. How the mutants formed Krakoa, how they made the medicines for the people, for humans, that were also allegedly tainted by the same mutants who made it to save the people, the humans. If you believe Orcus's talking points, of course. He wonders how Captain Krakoa could be the same man, Cyclops, that stood as a symbol of the mutant nation, but also was responsible for the attack on the U.S. Capitol. Ben doesn't have all the facts, so he hasn't made up his mind yet on whether, that was Cyclops. From my personal perspective, I think Ben is probably going to find out the truth. He's good at doing that sort of thing. But for all my mutants out there who don't know who Ben Urich is, it's time to learn. Ben Urich first appeared in Daredevil 153 from April of 1978. He had been convinced that Matt Murdock was the Daredevil, and after confronting Matt confessed. Matt told him his entire story, how he got his powers, but then he told Ben, if you publish this story, I can no longer be the Daredevil. Ultimately, Ben did not publish the story and burned his papers regarding Matt being the Daredevil. So that's the kind of person that Ben is. That's who we're dealing with. I like Ben. I hope he digs up the truth. We then cut to an Orcus filtration center in Kansas City, Missouri, not Kansas. There is a line of mutants allegedly being sent off-world or to get a mutant inhibitor injection. It's at this point a mysterious figure appears and starts ninja sorting the Orcus guards. Who could it be? It's Psylocke. Meanwhile, Penance, aka Monet St. Croix, leads the mutants that were in line away from the filtration center and tells them to go anywhere but home. And while we're reading this and watching the action, we discover that these two have been doing this sort of thing since the Hellfire Gala attack. So good on them. Nice. Resist. We're now treated to several panels showcasing Psylocke's martial prowess, cutting down Orcus guards. But in the middle of one of these panels, Captain America shows up. Okay. Psylocke initially thinks Cap is here to protect Orcus. Of course, that's not true. He's there to fight them and to recruit Psylocke and Penance. Penance reads Cap's mind, and she's like, oh, it's not a trap. Cap wants them to join a new Avengers Unity team. Psylocke is a little defensive and doesn't want any lectures from Captain America after how she, still believes hundreds of thousands of mutants were killed. Cap says, hey, avenge them. Get goosebumps when I think about it. At this point, Quicksilver arrives with Deadpool, and there's a little bit of telepathy between Penance and Psylocke where they agree to join the Uncanny Avengers, and that's when Psylocke is like, hey, we're in. At this point, the five of them escape the filtration center as it explodes and as Stark's Sentinels arrive on the scene. Now in a helicopter, Deadpool contacts Rogue. She's doing some scouting of an Orcus facility. She wants to know how she can, how close she can get before the alarms are sounded. But she says, we're going to need some way of blending in. This is when we cut to the former jet of the X-Men, the famous Thunderbird. And in the back, we have the Blob and Wildside, and a person currently known as Captain Krakoa. I reckon this is the suit that Dr. or Mr. Stasis was going to uniform up our mysterious person in the medical pod with. They are now over Krakoa, and Captain Krakoa wants to check out the prison to see if they can't add any other mutants to their cause of the new Brotherhood. That's what they say. The narrator, who I believe is still Ben Urich here, goes on to explain that Captain Krakoa lied a lot. Blob thought he was Cyclops, and, Wildside, didn't care. But Urich continues that Captain K lied about not being detectable by Sentinels, and explains that Blob and Wildside were Captain Krakoa's useful idiots. Captain Krakoa he descends into a pit where they keep the worst mutant criminals and discovers Fenris, that is Andrea and Andreas von Stucker, who he recruits to his cause. Okay, who are the Fenris twins? Well, they are children of Baron von Strucker and were bioengineered by Arnim Zola himself to have the X gene. Andrea and Andreas first appeared in Uncanny X-Men 194. They are, in fact, Nazi white supremacists, so we don't like them. When they touch one another, though, they can generate thermal blasts and fly. They're like the weird AF evil Wonder Twins. Anyways, they're not great folks. I already dislike them quite a bit. At least, because they're Nazis. Okay, so now Deadpool and Captain America, they're in disguise. They're traveling underground. A bit of the narration here is how Captain America wanted to give Deadpool another chance on his quote-unquote Unity Squad. But it's Deadpool, right? So Cap and Deadpool make it to the underground, and there we find Tony Stark and one Hazel Kendall, who is really just Emma Frost in disguise, waiting along with Psylocke and Penance. Deadpool calls the White Queen the undercover boss. She don't like that. Finally arriving Shadowcat, Rasputin 4, Kamala Khan, and Quicksilver. A bit of a side note, Emma is still wearing this inhibitor ring on her neck that a Sentinel put on her back in Invincible Iron Man number 8, which is the episode before this one, so you should check it out. When Quicksilver arrived, he came with a message telling Cap that he, quote, found our targets and that they're going for the nukes. He then speeds them all over to said targets, and it turns out that it's the New Mutant Liberation Front. And I have to be very specific. It's not the New Mutant Liberation Front. It's the New Mutant Liberation Front, okay? It has nothing to do with the New Mutants, let alone the Newest Mutants, other than the fact that we're covering this story. All right, finally some really cool action. We had a little bit earlier with Psylocke chopping up some Orcus guards, but now we're getting mutant team on mutant team fighting action. Nothing is sexier. So it's the Uncanny Avengers, aka the Unity Squad, or as Deadpool prefers, the Avenging X-Men, versus the Mutant Liberation Force. We first have Psylocke versus Wildside. We have Penance taking on Captain Krakoa. The Fenris twins team up and literally put a hole in the middle of Deadpool. At this point, Cap uses his shield to knock some sense into Wildside and then into Captain Okay, finally we get the matchup of the two captains. Cap tells him that wearing the uniform of your enemy violates the Geneva Conventions. So, he kind of knows that Captain Krakoa is no friend to mutants. This is a pretty tense fight. Cap attacks with his shield. Krakoa grabs it. They're struggling. And then Krakoa twists the shield. Here's a picture. And it breaks Captain America's arm. It looks like he's soaking a towel out to dry. It's kind of gross. He calls Cap's attacks predictable. And that's when he breaks his arm. At least it looks like he breaks his arm. And that's the book. Before I give you my takeaways, though, this is the part of the episode where I like to thank you for making it this far. One question, though. Who do you think Captain Krakoa is? Let me know in the comments. And if you do take the time to comment, also hit that like button and subscribe for more rundowns on comic books you're not reading. Or maybe you are reading and you just want to hear me describe things poorly for 20 minutes. In any case, let's get back to the book. Okay, let's get started with the takeaways. Number one, we still don't know who Captain Krakoa is. I'm thinking this book is also going to be our home to the mystery of Captain Krakoa. It's probably going to be a big surprise when we find out, and I don't know who it might be, but it may be shocking. The only hint we have so far is that it's not Cyclops, and that this person is stronger than a regular human. Number two, Team Stark and Frost is still together, and Emma is in disguise, pretty funny as Hazel. What I don't understand is why they can't get the inhibitor collar off of her. Can't Shadowcat just phase it off? I'm very perplexed. She's with Tony Stark, Mr. Tech. She's with a bunch of really powerful mutants. Why can't they get that off? I don't know. I do know what's coming in the pipeline, though, for Frost and Stark, but I just don't get the collar part. Glad to see those two working together, though. Number three, what does the New Mutant Liberation Front want with nukes? If Captain Krakoa is likely an Orcus plant, what are their actual plans? In alternate timelines and futures, such as Days of Future Past, the nuclear arsenals are often launched in an effort to either destroy mutants or, mutants trying to destroy humans. So my guess is that we're going to get some version of that event, which is something that sort of seems to always happen. Then again, it could just be part of Orcus's, long-term plot to keep making mutants look bad. I hate Orcus so much. So the story really didn't unfold too much in this issue. Much of it was about forming teams. On one hand, we had Cap recruiting Psylocke and Penance. And we had a mirrored situation with Captain Krakoa recruiting the Fenris twins, Andrea and Andreas. I suspect that much of this run will be dedicated to how these two teams deal with one another, as well as how they operate as individual units. Equally interesting will be the ultimate revelation of Captain Krakoa. Will it happen in this series or another? We shall see. All right, it's time to talk my favorite panels. My third favorite panel in this issue is Deadpool looking through the gaping hole in his own body. It's right here. No, it's over here. Look at it right there. This is a classic Deadpool gag. Of course, he's complaining about how he just washed his uniform. And it's a great visual of him looking through the hole in his own body. Not to mention, we also see Rogue and Blob framed by this hole, where she's trying to convince Blob that he's on the wrong side. It's awesome art, one of the best panels in the book, obviously. The next panel that I want to show you is a POV shot of Mr. Stasis and MODOK from inside the medical pod that they were talking to earlier. I love this because it kind of looks like a sketch. I really love this monocolor blue. It really brings out the details of these two characters, and it really makes MODOK look extremely gruesome. Awesome. It's my second favorite panel in the book. My number one panel, however, is this full page panel of the Uncanny Avengers versus the New Mutant Liberation Front. Both teams striking some epic poses with the two captains leading them. I really love all the parallels here, and I hope this comic continues going down that line and not just for this issue. Sick art. Really like it. And of course, we're on to my favorite part of the show, and it's where I show off a comic from my own collection. And today, this one I bought specifically for this episode. Why? Well, I didn't have anything that tied into the issues like many of my other episodes. So I found this today. This is X-Men number 6 from 2022. Here's a picture right there. And it is the first appearance of the Captain Krakoa suit. Let's check it out. Right? This is cover art by Pepe Larraz and Marta Gracia. I'm loving all of these images on the smartphones. Really cool. Pretty slick art. Anyways, that is it for this issue of the Newest Mutants. Next time, I'm going to cover Astonishing Iceman number 1. As always, the words of the great Stan Lee, Excelsior.